do we factor this in? It looks like pharmaceutical stocks are going to be under a little bit of pressure this morning, but European equities broadly look like they're on the front foot.
Absolutely. Futures are up across the board actually now, and that's perhaps surprising because we've had these big tariff announcements. If you look back to April when we had announcements like this, it weighed on equities very heavily. But I think there are two factors happening here. One is that this has happened before. We've seen that the impact wasn't ever quite what it had initially been perhaps perceived as. There's the whole sort of Trump always chickens out trade. But also this is quite nuanced. And actually there is this caveat for particularly for pharmaceutical manufacturers, which is if they're building manufacturing facilities in the US, then there are no tariffs. And that is something which some of the companies are already doing. If you look at like AstraZeneca, they already have a quite large manufacturing base in the US, and they also announced more plans in July. So a lot of the companies have sort of got ahead of this in anticipation. I think the Swiss pharmaceutical companies are the most exposed. Also, the Novo Nordisk is actually, most of that's made in Denmark, the Ozempic drugs, and that's a real problem, I think, perhaps there. But again, some of this has been priced in already, and we're coming from a period where stocks have been weighed on, and actually there was a bit of a sort of aversion from risk earlier this week already. So I think we're coming from a very different place than we were in April.
Morwenna, what is gold telling us? Is China buying? What are these ETF flows telling us?
Yeah, so gold, we're about to complete the 6th weekly gain in a row. We've been at record highs. We've been up 40% this year. I think the question really is how much further do we go from here? There are some signs of slowing. Some of those fundamentals that have been driving it, such as aversion to the dollar. Yesterday we saw better than expected GDP. That's not so good for gold from the US. But we also see what the inflation data today brings to that. But in the long term, all of the reasons why these haven assets, and particular gold, have been so appealing are all still on play. And I think today's tariff announcement just underlines the case for fundamental uncertainty that's driving gold's appeal. And we're still seeing those flows, and we're still seeing central banks buying.
Just finally, Morwenna, I'm heading up to Liverpool tomorrow for Labour Party conference. How much are the bond vigilantes lingering over that this week?
Yeah, I think it's really going to be in focus, particularly after what we saw yesterday from Andy Burnham, really telling the government to sort of stop being in hock to the bond market, at the same time calling for more borrowing, which of course is one of the problems for the bond market, and traders are not going to like pledges for further spending. I think a key catalyst is actually going to be Reeve's speech on Monday. If she seems to be leaning towards the left, or whether she's talking about maybe hinting at raising taxes, that could alleviate some of the pressure. But really, we're looking ahead towards the actual budget itself, I think, for any real relief there for gilt yields.